Hello everyone, welcome to the Jenkins Infrastructure weekly team meeting. Today we are 29 of October 2024 and around the virtual table we have myself, Damien Duportal. Jay is in holidays, lucky him. We have Mark Waite, Stefan Merle, Bruno Verharten and Kevin Martins. Welcome everyone. Okay, let's get started with the announcement. So last week, the weekly release 2.482 went well as usual. And this week, the weekly release 2.483 started on time. So it should be finished in 2 to 4 hours, depending on how much time we spent on the minor intermediate steps. Any question on Jenkins weekly release or things to add? Nope. Okay, so next announcement. Tomorrow we will have an LTS release. That will be quite the LTS release. So as a reminder, please get rid of your JDK 11 today, so you will be ready for tomorrow. Is that a
So
nice way to put it?
that's a very nice way to put it. I will launch that build relatively early, probably about the same time we launch the weekly builds, if I'm
Okay,
awake. There's enough nervousness in me to be sure that we get that thing started promptly. So I will launch that build early and then probably ask for help watching it if I am unable to focus on it.
gotcha. We will be available tomorrow to monitor the release and
Great.
help as much as we can. Anything else on the announcements? Nope. Okay, so let's have a look at the upcoming calendar. Of course, next week we will have a weekly 2.484. Next LTS is tomorrow, as explained in the announcement. Tomorrow, Mark is release lead.
Right.
I haven't seen any publicly announced Jenkins CI advisory, so lucky us.
Mhm.
We have a pull request automatically open for related to credential expiration. That's for cert.ci.jenkins.io. That is a private controller used by the GenSec team and managed by the Jenkins Infra team. That controller will have the credential used to spin up ephemeral virtual machine agent in Azure, which expire in November, 6, I believe, 6th November. So we will have to rotate it as usual. And that time I promise, if I do that task, I will restart the controller at the end to avoid everything to break 24 hours later. Hey,
I will
oops,
remind you.
thanks. I mean, basically, I will read carefully the instruction that time. Next major event. I know we have the FOSDEM in February. Do
So
we have?
Jenkins
Yep.
so let's see, Jenkins elections.
Yes.
Voting starts 1st of November. So yes, I'm proud to say I remembered to put that in the announcements. Jenkins Contributor Summit, 31 January 2025.
Ah, in
So it
Brussels.
won't be 25 degrees in Brussels in February, end of January.
Right.
No
And
way.
then FOSDEM, February 1 and 2. And we've got one other that really doesn't affect the team, but I'll be at, you don't need to put it in the list. The Linux Foundation Member Summit will be November 19th through the 21st. And I hope there to meet with the Alpha Omega people to ask for more funding for security projects, just like we did with the Jenkins CSP grant that they recently provided. I'm having a
Cool.
discussion with the security team Thursday to talk about what things should we propose, and then I'll talk with Linux Foundation with Alpha Omega people at that conference to see which ones are most interesting to them, and we'll try to find a balance between all those things. Let's see,
Cool.
other major events. Oh, 2 week, yes, important one. 2 week break in Jenkins releases at end of calendar year. Yeah, so that will deliver thus we will deliver the third LTS of 2.479 in early January, not on the 25th of December. Dot three.
Oh, that's free.
Right. Great.
Great. Cool. Anything else?
Those are all the ones I'm aware of.
Cool, thanks. Okay, let's have a quick look at the cloud budgets. Okay, okay. Here we are, July. Okay, so on Azure CDF, I think I did a mistake. Azure CDF. So we have consumed 3.6K. The forecast is around 4.1K. So we are in the line. The slight increase we saw 2 weeks ago has been already drowned inside the whole month, so that's good. On the Azure sponsorship area, we have consumed way more though, as expected. We should almost hit the 12K. That's good thing. These are credits aimed to be consumed. But yeah, that continue confirming we have to continue working on the AWS migration for CI Jenkins IO.
Well, and that reminds me that my guess that we would go down after completing Spring Security was wrong, because we've replaced Spring Security with Jenkins CSP, which is doing the same kinds of things, applying ATH and plug-in bomb to test many things very quickly.
In fact,
Same
I
rule
think
as
we
sorry, go
can
ahead,
think that will always be the case with something new that we have to test. I mean, that's the aim of the CI.
That could be, although that then is sort of crushing my desperate optimism, Stefan. So that
No worries, we all know we will end up with bare metal machines doing a high amount of workloads, and that will cost clearly way less than 10K per month with the same efficiency. So no worries.
well,
But yeah, we are
we-
given credits.
and we have a plan, right? The credits are very well used for the Jenkins project, and we have a plan to switch to AWS. So I think we're doing the right thing. And Michelle Martineau said, Mark, if you need to ask Microsoft for more money, one of their key contacts will be at Linux Foundation member Summit. So I may be able to ask again there.
Cool.
So
Crossing fingers.
yeah, that conference is looking increasingly important for the Jenkins project.
Many thanks, Mark, for taking care of this. On the DigitalOcean front, we will have consumed almost 200 bucks instead of a bit less on the past months, mainly due to the slight outbound increase on archive Jenkins IO as expected. We still have 15K to consume before end of year.
So, and I'm surprised it was only a slight outbound increase. We did an outage for multiple hours one day where all traffic went to archives.jenkins.io, didn't it? And that
Yep.
did not dramatically boost our costs for the bandwidth.
Yes, so because DigitalOcean is not one of the top level key player in the cloud area, so they have a business model in which virtual machines are usually a bit more expensive than the entry levels lines on the big three like Azure, Google, or Amazon. But you don't have any bad surprise. The outbound bandwidth is drawn inside the cost of the instances, so it's linear and you don't have bad surprise like in AWS, for instance. That's one of the numerous explanations, and they use that as a marketing stunt in order to get customer out from the bigger. You will see the same with Etzner, OVH, Scaleway, which are European cloud provider. I mean, that's a nice commercial tactic. We don't pay a lot for outbound bandwidth, but we don't have spot instances, for instance, or we cannot scale the node pool on Kubernetes to 0. So
Right.
different cost online problems.
Thank you.
But that's
Thanks for
the problem. Sorry, go ahead.
no, thanks.
I had a delay.
That I like that. Thanks for clarifying. So we did in fact increase our usage, but our actual cost increase was relatively small.
Exactly. So we still have credit and we'll start trying to renew this beginning of December or move archive Jenkins IO somewhere else. On the AWS account, so on CloudBees AWS account, where we have 3 virtual machines, including the big update center virtual machine and PKG backend. We have consumed 5.8 and we have a forecast at 6.2. So we are on what is expected, and that also shows that we need to work on the update center. I forgot to renew the amount of credit left on the sponsored account on AWS, but we have consumed almost 140 and we should have 150. That's not a lot, but that's a start. Anything else on the cloud's billing? Okay, so let's roll on the tasks that were finished during the milestone that is closing today. Where the user complaining about their system not able to download plugins. They were able to reach the update center. However, it looks like they were redirected to a mirror that looks like blocked on their system. I've closed the issue because it's on their own. However, still a quick action has been made. We have an API on reports.jenkins.io. Reports Jenkins. Let me show this on the screen. That API is updated once a day with some public information related to the mirrors. Not only, but for each mirror, once a day we update the hostname and we retrieve the associated IPv4 and IPv6. So that Meta API is a tool for our user to contact their network administrator so they can keep rules and update the outbound rule to allow this IP on their firewalls. And that system has an issue until a few hours ago due to a mistake that I made in writing the documentation. It was using, in the hostname here, the initial domain name we use for the SciLister mirror, which was mirrors.scilister.net. The owner of that mirror contacted us during the summer so we could change the top-level DNS. But I forgot to also update the mirror name, which is used here for the generation. So it was skipping the original domain name with the original IPs, which were existing and legit IP, but the redirection to that one is a different IP. I cooked that while trying to give that tool to the user complaining and realized that both IPv4 and IPv6 weren't the same as the one that was resolved by their DNS, and for good cause. So in any case, I fixed this before sending them the link here, just to be sure that if they go contacting their network administrator, they will have to do it at least once. And the documentation is updated, so the mistake won't be made next time if we need to migrate again the mirrors. Any question?
No.
Thanks, Mark, for taking care of blocking a spamming user on Jira. We worked with the OSU team because they want to move the system hosting the legacy list jenkinsi.org, which is, as per team and Mark feedbacks, it's an archive of an old system of us. They needed to move this to another HA proxy behind another HA proxy system. So we had some DNS record to updates. That has been done with details on the issue, and everything is under Terraform control now. So thanks again for the Oregon University for hosting us. We had an issue, thanks Bruno and Hervé for detecting this problem, or what is partially a problem, raising issue and fixing it. So we had what we call the Docker inbound agents, not the plural form, which is a kind of official without being really officially maintained repository of Jenkins, providing custom images for agents with custom tools within. And some of them were using the latest tag, or a tag that is like the latest, So of course, when we stopped a few weeks ago delivering default JDK 8 at all, or moving to 17, that has a domino effect, and these images were updated with a remoting that is not JDK 8 at all. So thanks, Bruno, you fixed the 8 and the 11. Now that's the SIG platform group to decide the future of these images because it only has 8 or 11. Bruno proposed proof of concept of at least adding 17 and 21. That will be discussed and decided if we need to keep that set of tools. But thanks for raising this because it could have been one of the old issue we had when delivering, and we had to control it wasn't an accidental build and deploy on trusted CI. It wasn't. I'm really happy with this. But thanks, folks. Thanks, Jay, for working on to update CLI automatic systems. So on the Packer image, where we build the Jenkins infrastructure internal agent images for virtual machine and container, we now, oh, sorry, no, it's not on that project. It's on the new Terraform AWS, and we keep the Terraform provider and modules up to date. My bad. Thanks, Jay, anyway, because you did the work. And as I'll show later, we were able to fix the last blocker for the update center confirmed during the fifth brownout. So that was a problem between Apache and network file system from which Apache was serving pages. Our tuning was able to remove, at least we weren't able to detect or reproduce the issue in the 24 hours of the brownout. Finally, we had a not planned issue because someone needed support, but not related to the platform. Any question on the finished tasks? Okay, so let's roll on the work in progress. I already tried to aggregate and triage these issues by priority. First one, update center. A lot has to be said for this one. The fifth brownout was a success. We have removed all blockers that will prevent us to move to the new system. However, it's still not good or will need additional work. So we have to discuss and decide what will be the next step. Do we want to fix some of these issues before we go full production to avoid taking any risk and stress? Or do we stop delaying and we move forward? That's the real question we need to address. So I've tried to give a postmortem here. My proposal is that we discuss, gather information and exchange this week, and we get a final decision for next week. So next meeting will be for 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 4th November, if I'm not mistaken. The next Infra meeting, we will say, okay, let's go for a date for production, or have an exhaustive list of what need to be done before going to production.
The 5th of November.
5th November, sorry. So what did we had as a result? The two last blocker issues, we weren't able to have them. One was solved with the help of Daniel Beck discussion, and that one we knew was going to be fixed. Which under the line solved the big problem. We solved the priority order of the redirect rules in Apache. That clearly simplify, and if we would have done that during the spring, we would have saved 1 to 2 months of work. But yeah, that's all software work. The second one was related to tuning the shared file system between the two Apache replicas, since we need HA. So that's new compared to the current update center. We cannot be 100% sure that that second issue won't come again once in production after a few days sustained. But I mean, we have done 5th, 24 brownout. At the moment, we need to go forward on production and fix things when they come. We have a solution for that problem if it comes again. We have found something. The question is, do we want to do that solution and change a bit the architecture, test it and go to production after that? Or do we want to go and say it's an optimization?
So
Yep, sorry, go ahead.
I'm of the opinion we go ahead and call it an optimization, listen for noise. Do others disagree? I mean, I like getting us onto it. 5 brownouts have been exactly what we needed. That's been great. I think we're ready. Damien,
I
do you
don't
have
agree or disagree. Do you mind if I just finish my summary
Oh,
because there
yes, I'm
might be
sorry, go ahead.
other points?
Yes,
No problem. That wasn't
go
advertised.
ahead.
Um, so it's still working good. So we saw the same result as previously and was on the performance benchmark performed by Hervé and then me and then the whole team. Just a summary of the requests that are hitting Cloudflare. So the requests that are not served by Apache and instead redirected to the Cloudflare mirrors. Some requests are treated by Apache and some are redirected to get Jenkins IO. We are on the first case. The amount of data maps to what we see on the current production. This JSON and HTML file weigh during one day from 2.2 up to 2.9 each day terabyte of data downloaded. So we have the same amount that maps to the previous brownouts. We saw 9.6 million hits, almost 64% were 404s. We are not able to tell which exact URL because we run the brownout before Cloudflare enable the detailed access log. So we will set this up and we will be able to see. However, if you subtract the amount of errors to the total amount of hits, you have exactly the same order of magnitude, 3 billion and something successful hits, which are the same successful download as the current production. That's why for me it's a success because the main features of the update center are still being done. Downloading the JSON file from a mirror, highly available. These are successful and clearly will decrease the cost. But we still have this error to fix. Is it a problem? Not right now. That could be a risk for the partnership DAO because Cloudflare tends to have a billing model based on the amount of requests on the object storage. A 404 is an error request. So it counts on some class of requests that if they reach certain threshold might be annoying.
We're not sure it's 404. It's 4 something.
Yes, but if
It's
that change,
probably 404.
I mean, I challenge you to find another kind of error. Because 400 mean client-side error, meaning the request is badly formatted. So this kind of error would already exist today. Changing the server side cannot change the error code on the client side.
I'm almost
Except,
sure it's 404.
yeah, maybe teapot. I will be
No.
interested finding a teapot error, but that's for the RFC readers. In the, let's say the word thing. So we still have this HTTP 404. We saw a visible decrease based on the work we did with Daniel. But as Daniel underlined with his analysis of the access log today, that's still a teeny part. So we still have this error we want to avoid. We cannot measure, but we know we have a lot of errors. We don't know the ratio on the one that reach Cloudflare. We have some requests such as update center /current/ which is a directory that's today serve HTTP 2.0 with the directory listing on Apache side. Today, that request is sent to the mirror, which tries and rewrite the URL to try to get an index HTML, which doesn't exist for this directory. Hence the HTTP 404 on Cloudflare. Is that behavior still explaining the high rate of HTTP 404 on Cloudflare? We don't know. We need to check this. Is it a blocker? Clearly no, because this is someone trying to list the files on the update center. No one should do this on the update center. There are no reason. So most probably we have a bunch of Artifactory or web crawler connected to this system, and they recursively crawl from the directory listing. So somehow we could say we accept this behavior and that's okay. Maybe it's a feature that we want to maintain, but it's not a blocker. It's a regression compared to today, but clearly that's not the main goal of the update center. On the other note, the update center 2 generation jobs is still slower than before. We could work on optimizing. And Daniel mentioned during a new core release with a new version number for the update JSON, we have a time window of 2 to let's say 4 minutes in which that new system is failing, but it quickly come back online. That's something that happened only on new releases of a new LTS or during an advisory. As per Daniel and the whole security team, it's not important, it's an edge case, we can accept this. But if we could fix it at a low cost, that could be easy. Based on all of these, particularly the index part, if we want to have it fixed in a momentum time and consider it an optimization, which was my initial thought process, that might have huge impact on the architectures. Because the index, if we want to keep that feature, we either have to decide to have it dynamically on the mirror side that require to use other Cloudflare feature named Walker. So for each request, it starts kind of lambda that then gets the file or list the directory and send the result. That might be additional cost. We are fully sponsored by Cloudflare, but that's additional work. We could also generate these pages once on each update center generation. We spin up a Apache container. We get all the directories without index.html, that's a few milliseconds. And then we emit curl request and write the index.html and send them to the mirrors. That will be a way to fix it at the cost of increasing a bit the work on the update center. If we add mirrors, which are virtual machine we manage, we don't care. Whether we use Apache or Nginx for serving file, we enable the feature and it's done. On the other solution, we could reconsider some choices we made along the line and say, oh, okay, let's go back to the initial model. And we say we get the update center on both Apache. But we only had a redirection to the mirrors on URLs that we know must be downloaded from mirrors, such as the JSON file. Every file ending on .json or .txt should be served from the mirrors because they represent the real cost that we are suffering from. Based on Daniel feedbacks, we might want to study this. We were initially checking this and we were blocked due to the rewrite rules problem that is now fixed. So it could be interesting to consider that approach. That would be a huge change, but maybe it will simplify further optimization without taking risk on the production workload. What are the risks here? The risk is that Apache will serve way more requests. That's okay, we have power, but the outbound bandwidth that we pay for on Azure will increase. As per the measurement we have today, that additional bandwidth will be 1 to 200 bucks per month max, while most of the heavy workload, the 2 terabytes per day, is sent to the R2 Cloudflare. That will be reconsidering some choices, but that will help simplifying because we send way less requests to Cloudflare and only the requests we need, so that's an optimization. But also that will avoid us having to hit heavily the Apache network file system. Because that system, yes, that's absolutely counterintuitive, but that's a system where we do a rule now, which is, hey, do you have the file? No, then send to mirror. That request that goes through the directory structure tree will then talk to the CIFS Samba or the NFS client, which will uncache locally due to the file not being found. So then we emit additional requests to the storage system in Azure. We don't pay for this request, but as we saw on the metrics, we have 80% of these requests that are errors, meaning file not found. So that's a huge part of the requests that are errors to the file storage. By changing the architecture like this, we will remove all of these errors to the backend.
And we will provide a fallback in case of stop of Cloudflare stopping our sponsorship,
No,
because that will be the
that's
fallback
unrelated.
whatsoever.
That's absolutely unrelated.
It's
Uh,
not a new node, Apache
no,
or Nginx, that we handle
no,
and that will.
no,
Okay.
it's not. It's the current Apache, the first update
Oh,
Jenkins IO fronts
the
thing.
redirection one.
Exactly.
Okay.
That one will simplify the update center generation and make it faster. So the goal is to say, hey, let's use the same, that one will be, hey, let's use the same thing as today, except we have 2 Apache instead of 1. And for the requests we know are EV downloads, we redirect this request to a mirror instead of serving them from the local file.
Okay, so we split the load directly from the Apache doing the redirection. The heavy load of JSON file is handled by mirrors, but we keep some serving directly from those Apache. They are not handling only the redirection. They also handle some serving some page that we know
Exactly,
we got. Okay. Okay.
exactly.
So would that then also solve would that then give us out of the box directory browsing, so we don't have to do generation of index.html for directories that don't have that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
With the limit of we must keep the content of the directories under a certain limit, otherwise it will be slowed down, like on Get Jenkins IO when you list all the weekly releases. But yes, that will avoid requiring generation of the in directory listing while keeping the mirrors for, let's say, getting some part of the workload.
Okay.
So that will be an
And
overall configuration simplification. That will means the past 3 months we worked on could be erased. Is it good or bad? I mean, I don't care. We'll prefer something simpler that works out of the
Right.
box. But yes, we spend some effort on this, and now we are going back by learning by our mistakes. And the main hidden takeaway is that for any unforeseen functional issue, we would have something closer to the real current update Jenkins IO. It's just a redirect rule in Apache that we can reproduce locally in a container. So we could clearly simplify the system and make it more efficient.
So I'm going to try to say back to you what I think I heard.
Yep,
It is that we would switch to serving everything from Apache except those things we know are heavyweight. The
yep,
things that are heavyweight we know are JSON files, HPI files, WAR files as examples. There may be
exactly.
others in the list, but those are 3 that I know of are heavyweight. And it would be a relatively simple thing configuration wise to say those all redirect towards Cloudflare or towards get.jenkins.io, towards a mirroring system immediately. So,
Exactly.
okay.
That's exactly the idea. And we already do that for the WAR or HPI file. We already have that redirection to get Jenkins IO. So that
Okay.
will be exactly the same feature, but only for the .json file and eventually a few other extensions. So
And
that's
the JSON file is already available from get.jenkins.io,
no,
or is that would be an addition that the mirrors would need to now
exactly.
start copying the JSON file?
Yeah, that's what we did for that service. That's mirrors that updates the Jenkins.io. We have mirrors here with 2 mirrors, which are
Right.
the Cloudflare mirrors.
Right. And so sorry, I was confusing. That is not us making that OSUS, OSL,
No,
and Belnet and every other mirror must have a copy of the JSON files.
no, absolutely not.
This is
Yep,
a partitioned mirror that is
exactly.
only, and we're using Cloudflare for that partitioned mirror today. Got
Exactly.
it. Thank you.
We don't want our sponsor to have the mirror because we don't control the updates and we need to be sure we have the update file available.
Right.
That has been a huge requirement from the security team.
Thank you.
yeah, it's just going a little backward and allowing those Apache that handle the redirection to also handle serving some few
Right.
pages to
Exactly.
simplify, in fact, and to get the benefits of that listing and to get the benefits of being close to what we got right now, which is an Apache server. And that means that we will probably avoid most of the silly thing we saw now.
Exactly. That's exactly my point.
I
So
like it though. I like it.
uh, I'm I took because I realized this while writing the postmortem that that one could be a wise one. That mean
In fact,
okay,
that's
we
that's
tried things
matching
and we
what
learn.
said that's matching what said Daniel Beck
Yep.
when we were working together, and he was saying, "Oh, but you're doing a lot of things, but it would be easier to have them served because that's almost nothing." I understand what you mean now.
Yep. And we still have one optimization, which is if the former issue, the 404 due to Apache and network file system, if that one comes back, that one will be an optimization. We remove the persistent volume and we add local volumes
Oh yeah,
with other things
I think
and we're done. I've run a local POC and found a solution how to do that in Kubernetes. So
oh,
yeah, that might be 1 or 2 days of work, but we know we have a solution. And I propose we work on changing this, what we just say, before going to either production or eventually 6 brownout. I will be interested if we do that change. I know it's a lot of brownouts, but I prefer being safe than sorry.
agreed. And that will allow us to have some time to get more information about the logs of Cloudflare too.
Oh, good point. I forgot about this one. Yes, the 6 brownout will have detailed access log on Cloudflare.
And that will solve most of the problem at
Yes,
once.
exactly. If we see remaining 4xx errors, we could clearly tell which error are and understand what the problem is.
And that will convince us to go for that solution or to avoid and move back.
Exactly.
You did a
Does,
great job. You did a great job.
does it make sense
Oh
for
yeah,
everyone?
I think it does. I think, okay, so really what you're saying is we really do need to consider, we need to go this path,
Mhm.
provide the files from the Apache front end, except that we'll do 1 or maybe 2 more brownouts to be sure that this thing is working well, and that the simplification is absolutely worthwhile to us of doing this. And if it improves update center performance, that for me is another the update center cycle time is another win that we were going to have to work on separately later.
Yep.
So there are lots of reasons to recommend this. I feel good about it. Yeah, thanks for the explanation and for the research to get us here.
Cool. Thanks for the help of everyone, because alone I could have not done that alone. Uh, okay, sorry, I took that time on update center, but that was mandatory.
Mm.
Back to the notes. See postmortem. So let's use Apache for directory listing. Okay, that's the takeaway. On the area of CI Jenkins io.aws, Jay did the most of the work during the past milestone, so now he's off for a few days. But he successfully validated the Linux AMI image. He used a local controller that was able to spin up with success Linux ephemeral agent on the new AWS account. So we have permissions, we have a manual setup, and we used to have config as code. We will have to fine tune the network setups. But now the network is not there, so Jay wasn't able to do this. So he focuses time then on optimizing the EC2 blocks, keeping a provider up to date with update CLI. So that's the biggest part. We have paused this. When he will be back, he will work on garbage collecting these images and adding the Windows images. On the controller side, so Stefan and then me and then Mark and me and then Stefan and I, we all had discussion. So here is a brief. The new virtual machine will be half-sized compared to today, because most of the metric that Stefan and then me looked at on Datadog shows that the machine is clearly over-allocated. It has 8 CPU and we never used more than 350%, so less than 4 CPU. We can always revisit that choice. That will be a VM restart and go. Same for the memory. We have 32 gigabytes of memory, while the machine never use more than 12 to 13. So clearly we could have a 16 gigabyte size machine that will be enough. Again, we can revisit. And the proposal, I think that came from Stefan, because that's what I saw in the notes and tries he did on the issue. But we should be able to use a Graviton, e.g. ARM64 CPU, because the latest Graviton Generation 5 are already there, and they clearly cost way less, and they have everything needed in terms of I/O to sustain such machine.
That's coming from Bruno, in fact.
That's a nice plan. Bruno, you need a hood and you need
Yeah.
you need a storm from your fingers, like everything
Yeah.
is going according to my plan, and then you cackles. Proposal, is there any objection on trying this? Given that,
so long as we do a proper brownout and a proper test it ourselves, and let me hammer on it with plug-in bomb and with acceptance test harness and with Jenkins core, I think that sounds great. I'm still a little skeptical of your suggestion to half the CPU and memory, because I'm not sure I trust the mapping from AMD 64 to ARM 64. But
the work
we'll
is done
see
by
by
the
testing.
agents, not by the CI.
You say that until you watch where pipelines execute.
Okay.
The ARM64 Graviton CPU are 8 years more modern than the current old Xeon we use for on production right now.
Okay. So
and clearly the ARM pure CPU behavior destroys the Xeon behavior.
I thought you had
Like
an
it's a
ARM
destroying.
in your basement. It's not working accordingly.
I have an ARM 64 in my I have a pair of ARM 64s in my basement, but they're memory starved.
Oh.
And so I'm thus hesitant to say we that we should starve memory again. So yes,
Oh,
I
no,
know I've
for
got
sure.
them. I've got 120 cores, but only 32 gig
Oh,
of RAM. And with
no,
that many cores and
Do a
that little bit of
GoFundMe.
RAM,
Yeah,
no,
let's do that for FOSDEM. We will look for memory in the FOSDEM.
just so that you know, so that means we target a 4 CPU 16 gigabyte server, the new one, but we can increase to 8 CPU 32, but also to insane 16 CPU or 32 CPU or even 48 CPU. So clearly we have some margin here.
And that's all I wanted to be sure of, is that we have some margin. If we have margin available, and if we discover we can use less of that margin, I'm delighted. I just don't want to be surprised that we've run out of headroom, that we've run out of margin.
Yep. I have to say I looked at the metrics on Datadog regarding to CI Jenkins IO on the past 4 years. That included hold from AWS. That was one of the only machine on AWS with data collected to Datadog. And we saw clearly on CPU usage, memory is less visible, but on CPU usage, each time we upgraded GDK to 8 to 11, and we saw a drop of 15% CPU. Then we upgraded to a way more modern CPU, 5% just dropped, just by going to a more modern CPU that the GDK11 was able to use specific instruction. And then the move to GDK 17 was an insane decrease of 20% CPU usage for CI Jenkins IO.
Okay, all right.
That's insane.
So well, and that's a good story we should tell to our users. I will need more data on that, because Darren and I are going to do a talk on Thursday introducing 2.479.1. And if you've got data like that, please share it with me. That's very attractive to say, hey, as a real measurement, we see that ci.jenkins.io reduced CPU usage by this much with a switch to Java 17. Good, thank you.
So that's why I'm not really, but yeah, we have margin for this one. And we will simplify some, let's say, under the hood technical setups. We used to have 2 network interfaces. We will switch to only one, because one for SSH and one for HTTP. That doesn't make any sense now. one DNS entry point because one network, so we don't need two IP, etc. IPv6 support, but it's already the case, and only one disk because in AWS EC2, you can increase the size of the disk without needing to restart the machine. That's not the case in Azure for the rootfs file system, unless you use Azure Linux. While on AWS Ubuntu, clearly you just have to, I did a test on a test machine. So I started with 128 and I moved to 30 gigabytes. I changed the size in Terraform. I went on the command line and I resized the system while Jenkins was keep running. It's a bit slower during the resize that take 1 or 2 minutes, and that's okay. So I don't see the need or any reason to keep a separated data disk only for the Jenkins home in this condition. I would prefer to have a rootfs. And if you increase the size and you restart the machine, the resizing is done automatically during the boot sequence in AWS. So unless someone object, I don't see additional reason, and we only have one disk to set up and backup.
Great.
Now that is blocked by the networking part. So network part, Stefan and I discussed, we need to set up the network ICL and security groups. So these are the firewall rules to be sure that no one can SSH connect to the machine, but everyone can access it through HTTP service. And of course, that also blocks the work on the VM agent. Until we have a virtual machine with a controller and a network security group setup, we cannot go forward with the VM agent. Stefan, on the container agent, what's the status for you?
I started the Terraform skeleton based on what we were doing years ago and improving because the modules we were using have been updated and changed a lot. So for now, I'm learning all the documentation and trying to get forward. I will need to pair with you to make sure I understand what it meant, and that it matched what we want. Um, I think we still have the problem of the egg and chicken, but we'll see.
Okay. Thanks, Stefan.
You're welcome.
That's all for CI Jenkins IO. Do you have additional questions? Nope. Okay. Stefan, can you just give us a quick heads up on the GeoIP database update work you did?
Yes, as I was here, I spent more time on that than on the others. We managed to have a dedicated repository on GitHub and a dedicated Docker hub, how you call that, place, repo in Docker Hub.
Docker image that says here. That's named repository in Docker Hub, but I find it pretty confusing. So Docker image is usually understandable by everyone without any confusion.
No, I mean the place in the hub of Docker Hub. You call that Docker image?
Yes, I use Docker
Okay,
image. The strict word is repository,
okay,
but that's confusing with GitHub.
agreed. So we did manage to have our first image published with the how you call that, release drafter
Yep,
set up,
automatically. Yep.
and that was automatically deployed. So now next step will be the Helm chart and the work on the Helm for Kubernetes.
The POC cron job.
Yeah, you
Cool.
say that way better than me. Thank you.
Any question, anything else on GeoIP? So on GSOC, we had 3 topics. I've delayed one until mid-November because that require a bit more work to prepare Terraform, and I'm not even sure it will work. We have 2 other that require someone to migrate GitHub repository to the Jenkins infra. In one case, I understand it's the user, so I've pinged Chris, maybe Bruno or Mark, you could help or not, or I don't know if you have time, but we have to ask the user to transfer their repository and let us know in the issue. So then, as an admin of Jenkins Infra organization, I can finish the transfer and set up permissions. In the case of Valentin migration, he said he will be more available next week, and we need a Jenkins CI organization admin. So I've pinged Tim because I know Tim is an admin. I'm not sure if Mark you are.
I am not.
Okay, so let's rely on Tim or Daniel, or we will ping someone else. But yeah, so back to the topic, and then we will set up permissions and CI as needed. We had an issue about a user. So that's a user experience for developer question I have here. I've pinged the people for knowledge sharing. Oh, they answered. So they have an issue that ACP doesn't cache, doesn't proxy thing on custom repositories. That Artifactory repository is not mirrored on repo jenkins.ci.org, and the elements in this one are not in Maven Central. So from there, either they change their system and they get the few dependency on their repository as file, or we upload them on Maven Central, so that's an action on them. Or we decide to tell that repository should be accepted on CI Jenkins IO and not proxied by ACP. So they don't benefit from cache and they download artifact from a source we don't know anything about, but they can solve their problem and they will build their plugin anyway. I mean, they could do the thing if they release their plugin manually. They do the thing on their machine. So it's just we prefer to keep this in control on knowledge. And the third solution is we evaluate if this is worth adding this as a mirror in repo Jenkins CI that will solve the issue, but that need us to check what is inside this thing.
So back to the second one, could you describe that again? So it would be that if we simply allow, so today we are configured that we don't allow them to access this repository from inside our build environment.
Exactly, but we could set up the settings XML to exclude this ID from sending it to ACP, so it will directly download. They lose the caching, but we don't cache something we don't know anything about.
And this plugin is unlikely to be a heavy rebuild target. It's not like it's going to download the Jenkins war from this alternate location. It's just this relatively small set. So that sounds like something we control, that we could say, hey, we will allow you to get that, to use that thing unblocked by us.
Absolutely. So I asked them earlier today, but the answer, which is available, this depends on the core of the plugin and implement the ability to connect. Okay.
Yeah, so the person suggests this, the third alternative you suggested, but the second alternative also would work given that description, right?
I agree. Given the size of the plugin, how they deliver it and the amount of user, that's worth having them doing their thing on their own. And so we had the exclusion for them.
Yeah, so which of the options 2 or 3 is easier for us? Because I suspect they are comparable risk security wise and comparable
The
ease
second
for
one,
consumers.
the second one is provide them a better user experience and is easier, but on long term it will start to be hard to scale if we had thousands of exceptions.
Ah, right.
But
But okay, but let me challenge the notion that we might have many exceptions. Up to this point, we've been running artifact caching proxy for what, a year, maybe 2 years now, a year and a half. And I think this is the first exception we've encountered. So or
No.
am I forgetting? I've just got a conveniently bad memory.
No, we have 10 or 12 exception.
Oh, we do. Okay, all right.
I think it's on the Yera data common. I don't remember exactly where is the XML file, but settings. I don't remember where is the file, but we have a list of almost 10 to 12 exceptions. So that will be a 13.
So it will be one of many, And if we have to continue adding, okay, over the course of a year or two, we've added 10 or 12. So over 4 or 5 years, we might reach the point of 30 or 40
Exactly.
exceptions.
But if we reach, let's say, 20 randomly, that means we need to involve different contributor and maintainers on, hey, let's have let's check and scan plugins and see what they are doing with their dependencies. We don't want an NPM like. So it's wider than the infrastructure team. And having exception has the advantage that, okay, we can track the amount of exception and see, okay, technically it's easy to add exception. It's one string to add. However, let's say philosophically, that means, okay, we might need to start thinking about a community-wide thing here in order to solve, because that's, I believe it will be more an alpha and omega subject somehow. Because that's how do we scan for dependencies on the plugin to ensure the supply chain is not compromised by that intermediate.
Right.
I think that's the last one. So we have a bunch of new issue that will stay on TriH because we are still working heavily on the others. So I propose we keep the same state for now and we continue our work on CI Jenkins IO.
Okay.
Let's just check if we have new issues. No, we don't. So that's all for me. Let's continue, move every issue on the new milestone and keep working. So update center, CI Jenkins IO, and usual support. Any question or can I close the meeting?
No question for me. Are we done?
On
We
time.
are just in time.
Okay. All right.
Just a
Perfect,
reminder
then.
that Friday is a day off in
Right.
Yeah.
some
Friday is a
country.
bank holiday in France, right? Or at
Yep.
least it's a holiday in France.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, in India as well and some
India.
other areas. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Great.
we're not far from Diwali, I think.
Enjoy the day off.
Thanks.
you.
See you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.